Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just wait 2 more minutes while we are doing final preparations for the webinar and give people some time to join and enter. Okay, great. Good morning, people, depending wherever you are also, and good evening. Welcome to 2021 and our today's webinar, how to enter the world of servitization with the power of IoT. My name is Max Dinzer. I'm the pre-sales consultant of HSO Innovation, and I'm happy to talk you to this exciting topic that's pushing the manufacturing and the service industry further, especially since the recent year. For today's agenda, we thought of first have a little bit of an introduction round. So introduction to the webinar guidelines, to HSO Innovation itself, and to myself as a presenter. Afterwards, we will talk about the theoretical potential the Internet of Things and the common trend of servitization has and what it is, to give you a better understanding how to adapt to those changes as a company and what is the benefit of actually taking this new value proposition into your portfolio. Afterwards, we're going to have a few slides on our product Dynamics Advanced Field Service, which is the perfect back office solution for servitization. And then we will jump right into the live demonstration, how you can actually adapt servitization with our product and use IoT to get even better and more customer-centric and customer-focused at it. For the webinar guidelines, audio is enabled, so only for the presenter. When audio isn't working, please rejoin or look up audio information in audio pane or contact my colleague Abbas Barak at abarak@hso.com. Maybe he can help you to get inside the meeting. If that's not working, the presentation will be recorded and shared afterwards with you as well. Although you still have the capability to answer questions, there's a questions pane, and please feel free to fill your open questions inside there. At the end of the webinar, we will spend some time to answer these questions, and we can also get back to you on these in written writing. Yeah, about myself, my name is Max Dinzer. As already mentioned, I'm the pre-sales consultant of HSO Innovation, working within the Microsoft Dynamics ecosystem since 2016, mainly responsible for our 3 big products: Dynamics Rental Management, Dynamics Service Management, and Dynamics Advanced Field Service, which will be the showcase of today. Underneath that, you can find my email address, mdinzer@hso.com. And yeah, from an HSO innovation perspective, we also always represent ourselves a little bit from a personal side. So I'm a big soccer enthusiast. Beside the soccer picture, you can see my lovely family at Christmas 2 years ago, which is quite important for me. I do like to work out a lot and do CrossFit at the CrossFit school in Arnhem. And yeah, the last picture is a little bit about my origin, because actually I'm a German that moved to the Netherlands, and I'm coming from the German part that's called Rhineland-Palatinate, and that's famous for its big wine festival, actually the biggest wine festival of the world, which is called Wurstmarkt in English. That means translated sausage market, but it's highly recommendable. Similar like the Oktoberfest, just with wine. It's a lovely area. You can go hiking there, and yeah, just have a good time. So that much about where I'm coming from and who I am. Let's get into HSO Innovation as a company. And HSO Innovation has been founded 2005, back then under the name Dynamics Software, and has been renamed to HSO Innovation in 2018. We are part of HSO Group, which is a larger system integrator for Dynamics 365 and Microsoft solutions. And HSO Innovation is the department within HSO Group that is responsible for new technologies, new applications, and all the innovative things. And what we mainly do is develop applications on top of the standards of Microsoft Dynamics 365, Azure, Office 365, and SharePoint. Besides that, we also offer premier services supporting all phases of your solution lifecycle. And we do that with over 55 strategic partners in over 36 countries, and therefore with global coverage. If we look at the applications itself we develop, then we are mainly focused in the service, rental, and maintenance industry. So also the topic of today, that's where our strength and experience lays since 20 years. And besides that, we also develop applications in distribution, retail, and what we call cross-industry. For example, Dynamics GDPR, that is a solution that helps you on top of the customer engagement platform to manage consents and data privacy regulations. Besides the business applications, we also offer premier services, for example, Azure integration scenarios. And a lot of scenarios we will be actually showcasing today, like portals, for example, or Internet of Things scenarios that connect your data and make your manufacturing more predictive, as well as your service more predictive. And you can change towards the more proactive approach. Besides that, we also develop mobile applications and new technologies like augmented reality and virtual reality. This being said, let's jump right into the topic, Internet of Things and servitization. But for that, I would like to first define a little bit what is servitization actually. And in my opinion, servitization is an approach that, especially for manufacturing companies, changes their value proposition from not selling only a product anymore. No, you sell a product as a service or sell some sort of outcome. For example, if you look at the power generator industry, it's the power that you generate around with all those services. So the usage actually of the generator, the energy consumed that is ending at your end customer. So you're not selling the power generator alone anymore. No, you're selling a power generator that is fully serviced, where you have insights into its telemetry, where energy consumed might be built, and where you get recurring revenue. If we look at that from a little bit more classical approach, so that is the classical business process you have, then usually an OEM was producing an asset, installing it at customer side, and then handing it over with a warranty term, which resulted in the customer has a product. But quite often then those manufacturers lose the contact towards the customer, or the product is at side, and they hire, for example, different kind of service companies, and you don't really have insights what's going on. So you kind of lose the contact towards the customer quite easily with that old business model, let's say. Servitization is giving you the opportunity to support the customer across the whole life cycle. And there you can actually think of getting a contract towards the customer, so a servitization contract, where you handle the whole solution lifecycle and can offer multiple service or deliver additional spare parts from your side. So you're actually extending the process and deepening and strengthening the relationship with your customer. And if we look then how a new process could look like, then the OEM doesn't produce the asset to sell it anymore. He produces an asset as a service. He still, of course, can install it at the customer side for a certain fixed fee, for example. But as soon as it's installed, you offer your customer a servitization contract. And alongside that servitization contract, you can generate recurring revenue on a monthly fee, for example, but you can also offer additional services like, for example, remote asset monitoring, that you give them insights across the whole telemetry, and maybe also proactively react on telemetry. So once again, back to the power generator example, if that power generator, for example, is overheating, and you spot that via IoT telemetry, then you can proactively contact your customer and say, hey, we've spotted that there's something wrong. Your generator is overheating. We should maybe send a service technician to investigate that, or tell the customer themselves you should act on that, and give them capabilities like a help desk or a service portal and mobile application where they can get insights on how to fix things their own for a certain kind of fee that they pay monthly, as well as deliver additional supply and services alongside that. And if we see how that influences the thing, then you have like what I would call a full customer satisfaction package that you can hand over towards your customer and stay longer in contact with them. And that, of course, increases your revenue over time, because the revenue will be reoccurring and you will be able to offer more services because you have more insights how your customers are actually using and leveraging your products. This also is correct in case of the benchmark study HSO did together with Microsoft and Noventum. Noventum is a service research company, and they offer best practices in the service industry. And there we see and spotted during our benchmark study that it is indeed really about process optimization, business optimization, and in the end, business transformation, because you want to come from a reactive service approach over a preventive to a predictive, and if even possible, to a proactive service approach, because it's not anymore about product related services like we see here underneath on the left side. It's more about customer business related services and satisfying your customer alongside service level agreements and products as a service, because you want to become a strategic business partner of your customer, not only a vendor. And that's also a different way of looking at you and can help you to basically stay on top of your customer's life cycle and deepen and lengthen as well the relationship, as well as prevent them from switching to a different provider. Because in the end, if the relationship is good and you're a strategic business partner of your customer, then they are more likely to stay at your side than if you just have sold them a product once. Servitization is also really about adapting and changing. So it's a lot of change management within your company as well. Maybe you even have to start at the really beginning. So a co-evaluation of your solutions and markets. Maybe you really have to change your complete business approach, change your value proposition. So it's also an internal cultural thing where your employees need to adapt, they need to acquire new skills. You maybe have to hire new employees. You have to adapt new technologies like IoT, for example, to be able to fulfill the requirement of servitizations. And this can, of course, be also a little bit disruptive for your business in some certain kind of areas. But it offers a lot of kind of potential in reoccurring revenue. And therefore, we have that hybrid innovation matrix that should symbolize you a little bit on how where the challenges are lying. And if we look at the side of the new business logic, it's of course in reconfiguring and extending your business model. So you don't completely have to get rid of your old business model. It could also work alongside, and maybe extending it in that way that you have to fulfill more requirements based on the customer's lifespan, because that's extending as well. And yeah, you also still have to use your common business logic and adapt there, maybe extend it, and pushing the frontiers with larger scales to see significant changes in your recurring revenue. And if we combine that with the business impact IoT has in field service, then of course the major goal and the major outcome you have thanks to that is that it will increase your KPIs in the service industry. Like for example, tickets to invoice timing, your SLA compliance can be way higher because you're way more automated, you get way more information, and data is of course key in common times. Yeah, this being said, let's dive into Dynamics Advanced Field Service, our back office solution that actually helps and supports you to achieve that service excellence, achieve servitization. because it is the perfect tool set to basically start with and adapt those technologies. If we look at Dynamics Advanced Field Service as such, for your information, it's a premium tier solution and preferred solution of Microsoft. So Microsoft recommends it as well. And you can get it on Microsoft App Stores, which is the business application store of Microsoft. You can also do a free trial there and try it out. Feel free to get in contact with me because of that. And these being said, for all of our products, we have a kind of solution map that should show you in one picture what the solution is capable of. And they are, of course, the advanced agreement and customer asset management capabilities are the capabilities that make that solution capable of offering you servitization capabilities, like, for example, the coverage terms, extended service level agreements, and the capability to have a customer asset hierarchy, get insights into case and work order history, extend your cases and work orders within the solution with SLA monitoring, spare part management, portals, so you can set up a customer help desk and extended mobile execution capabilities as well. If we then look at an end-to-end field service process, that is actually the standard process that you normally have, then we support you also around that with all kind of technologies. As mentioned, we can have the Power Apps and the portals around that, all the Power Platform capabilities like Power BI and Power Automate to automate your processes. And we are experts in the field of Azure IoT Central and connected field service, so making your devices smart and actually offering your customer that you can remotely monitor the behavior of their assets and give them insights on how the asset is actually performing, and maybe predicting and downtime, or if something is near to a breakdown, so you can proactively approach your customers alongside that. Now we can get directly into the live demonstration, and there's one more sentence which I would like to read you, and that fits also perfectly to the servitization story, and it is saying, if you knew what you know, you would be unbeatable. And therefore, let's dive live into the solution. If I open up my customer engagement platform, where Dynamics Advanced Field Service on top here is located, then we can directly get into the connected field service dashboard. And the sentence I just read is telling you basically that, okay, we're gonna produce tons of data nowadays, especially IoT is producing tons of data. So you see here hundreds of IoT alerts coming in. And if you want to do servitization, and if you want to do corrective services, then yeah, you basically have to have the right dashboards to get the best insight out of that data, because that ton of data might be overfloating. Of course, data is king, and you can achieve servitization with it because it is the key component that you need to have. But it's also important that you visualize that data so you can get significant insights out of that, like, for example, your IoT alerts per time, or different kind of dashboards that show you what kind of incidents occurred during your service work. So have it been breakdowns a lot, or did you need to exchange a lot of items? Are you currently installing a lot? And this also gives you a little bit insights on how your assets are performing. You can spot directly if assets are often breaking down, then you maybe have to have a look at the production if something went wrong. So you can get a lot of information and knowledge out of that. This being said, let's jump right in the solution and start with the process. So usually we see the production process of products that still, of course, stays within ERP and MRP. But as soon as a product is basically produced, or an asset is produced, we can generate via an integration to your ERP system and customer asset. And yeah, that customer asset can also be, of course, in a hierarchy coming, for example, from your BOM or different kind of object components. And if I open that up, the customer asset list, then I see the list of all my customer assets. I can get insights into the hierarchy I have. So that's, for example, the hierarchy symbol I've prepared for today's demonstration. The example of a smart meter, where we can see the meter case is on top of the assets, and you get a power converter and a processor and a meter modem underneath. Of course, you can have multiple level hierarchies deep. So underneath the processor could, for example, still be a motherboard located or some kind of sensor. You can drill down actually as deep as you want and create different kind of hierarchies. If we then go into one of those assets, we have all the detailed informations around that asset. So for example, at which service account it is, at which customer location it is currently located, where we can see the actual address. But the customer location allows us to also create a hierarchy of, for example, the building, where we could generate a first floor location, or it could be on the second floor in the third room. So we can actually get a real detailed insight on where the asset is currently located. We can make it part of an agreement. I will dive into that in a few minutes, because that's of course the main feature that we need to achieve servitization, because we want to have a reoccurring revenue contract for a certain amount of time. We can also still have the old scenarios with warranty end and start date. So warranty could be covering as well your service work if that's needed. And yeah, we can further detail the asset with a serial number, which manufacturer it's from, where from a territory perspective it's located for our service technicians to know where they need to travel. We can attach a documentation if that's needed. We can have a customer asset picture of it, get an overview of the sub assets again. Of course, it's also important in the service industry to attach properties to that customer asset. So for example, what is the height, what is the production date, or which current software version is it running on. Of course, here you can completely free to define yourself what kind of properties does that customer asset need to have. Yeah, we can do the customer asset warranty terms, and we can attach an agreement towards that. If we now look back at the process, how it was, we now have produced an asset, and that's actually the asset we are seeing right now. The next step in the process would be that we install that asset, so the smart meter at customer site. Their advanced field service can help us with the work order functionality. If we go to the related tab, I also prepared that for today's demonstration. We can see we can actually add way more information and link our assets to different kind of functionalities. For example, if you want to have a three-dimensional model as well, link it to all the IoT alerts and cases and activities, as well as the child and related assets. But let's start with the work order. I've prepared one example work order. As you can see, the status of that work order is already closed, so it's already done. The asset is already installed, because we see it's in work order type installation at the customer side. That's why we have seen where it's currently located, because that installation will also put your customer location on top of there. And if we then dive into the work order itself, we can of course have different kind of information on what kind of work has been done. So we see at which service account and customer, or which billing account even, we can differentiate as well. We have installed that. What have we done? We've done a smart meter installation at the area 1 at the customer location we've just seen, and we did that for a fixed price sum. So for 50 euro, you had the installation yourself. Then we can of course add all kind of informations like settings. So under which tax area is it coming, which preferences the customer has of visiting. In that case, he just said, please arrive in the morning. We can give the customer a rating, add supportive contacts, give that work order a certain kind of priority. And actually it can also come from an opportunity. So there is full integration to the sales module of Dynamics 365 customer engagement platform as well. And that allows you to also move data quickly to the sales department. So if additional services need to be sold, then the sales department can even have access on the field service bits as well and knows what they can offer. Besides that, we can define what kind of incident that is. In that case, it's a smart meter installation. We can book a resource on it. So we've booked my service resource on that. additional products that have been used during that work order, as well as services in hours performed. And underneath those services, we get service tasks. So those are actually the checklists and real components a service technician then has to do. So he needs to exchange a power cable, he needs to calibrate the asset, counter read out the current running hours, and maybe reset them, as well as do a final check on the smart meter before he hands it over to the customer. Yeah, this being said, that's how an installation could look like if the asset is now installed. Since we want to leverage the power of IoT, I would now offer the customer an agreement that we remotely monitor that asset for him. Since it's a smart meter, we could, for example, monitor the electricity, it could monitor the temperature. Yeah, basically all the meter readings that we are getting could be captured automatically. And yeah, we can offer services alongside that. This being said, I would like to get to the component underneath. So the modem of that meter, that's a sub-asset of the meter that we just installed. And the sub-assets with an installation are also installed at customer side. And now you can see that this asset has a little bit of a different view, because that's the IoT view we've now got activated. You can see there's a connected device attached towards that meter modem. We can get an overview of the current IoT alerts and cases and work orders. We can see here's the documentation of that asset. And above here, we can actually see we can register the device to connect to the Azure IoT Central IoT suite. So if I now hit the register device button, and then the asset is being registered in the background. This is a process that now needs a little bit because it's connecting to my Azure IoT Central application. I would now say that we dive into the agreement of this asset, and therefore jump back to the top meter case, and maybe change the view a little bit so we can see the agreement. And that agreement we have here, that is actually a remote monitoring contract. So that's where we really offer our monitoring contract. And yeah, we can see, okay, it's of type remote monitoring contract. We can see the total revenue we are generating out of that, the details for how long it's active. We can attach a price list towards that. So for all the products and services that are added, we can have a certain customer price list there as well. That's now a standard Euro price list, but you could also add a customer specific price list. We get the timeline where we can say, for example, that we had customer voice surveys to that customer. We've been in contact on calls with that customer or have written emails, so we can actually communicate with that customer based on contract record a lot. Then we have the booking setups, so we can actually create preventive visits upfront alongside. So if we're going to say we're going to visit that customer with that smart meter 3 times a year, then we can set that up in the booking setups here. We get an invoice setup that shows us for 12 months. It's reoccurring over 3 years. And if we go into the details of that also a little bit, we can actually see the invoice products and the total invoice setup that we are generating over time. So that's the product contract price per period. And here we can see the invoice dates. And we can see we've already invoiced the customer for a few times, but there's also still something to be scheduled. And you can of course have invoice terms after that to define when the customer should be billed. And as we can see, there's a certain kind of logic behind that. Yeah, this being said, save and close this one. We also have the capability to attach multiple customer assets towards that contract. So you can even extend the contract, or you could say that every asset has its own contract. And what we can also spot here, that all the components of the meter case are included in that contract as well. But you could, for example, define a contract like that just the meter case and the processor are covered, and maybe the meter modem, because it's an IoT component, has a whole different contract. So the solution gives you complete flexibility on defining what kind of contract do I want to have and which assets are being covered. And speaking of coverage as well, on what kind of SLA setup are we answering those requests? Are we answering those services? And based on the coverage terms, what is actually being covered? So here we are saying remote monitoring coverage for a year. So we can define what kind of service work, what kind of product deliveries are being covered, and to which certain kind of amount. Yeah, this is how you could set up a reoccurring servitization contract. And if we now go back to the meter case, we say we see it's connected. And what we can also spot is that you can basically send commands towards that asset. And this being said, I would like to dive with you into Azure IoT Central, which is completely connected out of the box with the field service platform, because it's all written on the Dataverse Open Data Initiative. And opening that up, we get the remote monitoring dashboard. We can see the asset has the status of connected, and we can get insights into the telemetry the smart meter is generating. We can, for example, see the last power reading, the minimum and maximum voltage, the energy consumption it has done. We can also have that in certain kind of graphs. And as I mentioned, that we can send comments towards that asset. We can see here that we can activate it, we can deactivate it, reconnect, or update, for example, a firmware version. So you can play a different kind of code commands towards that asset because it's really physically interacted. That could be that you want to reset the asset at the customer side, or that you maybe want to extend the solution a little bit so you can completely actually communicate with it from remote without being on customer side and getting the telemetry out of there. And now you should think of, why am I not offering my customers such a remote monitoring contract? Because I, as a service company or as a manufacturer, know what kind of telemetry my device has, how you need to handle it. We are the experts of the solution. So mostly your customers are not really the experts of that. They have a device, maybe they know how to use it, but from an inside living perspective, they don't actually know if something is breaking down because they are not experts. But you get the expertise on your side, and you could offer them a contract to get the overview and to handle the asset for them, completely remote. And of course, you can always schedule a technician against that. But Azure IoT Central allows you to do even more than just having a nice visualization of telemetry and what it's done. You can set up all kinds of devices. Those devices can have their own dashboard there as well. Once again, different commands and codes can be sent to there. You can get insight into the raw data the asset is actually producing, if that's now telemetry or property settings, what was the actual energy reading. Of course, you can always export that into the Microsoft 365 capabilities like an Office document. And besides that device dashboard, you have the possibility to update the properties. So where it's installed, what kind of version is it running. You can also group those devices if needed. And what is actually the most important functionality are rules. So based on certain telemetry, please do something. And here we get an example for an alert high voltage outage. And what is that doing? It's picking up the device template. So if a smart meter over a time aggregation of 5 minutes with a voltage reading that is maximum and greater than 100, then please activate my Microsoft Power Automate workflow. And what that Power Automate workflow does is that it creates a work order or a case depending on the voltage level. So you can either say if the voltage is 150 and that's already way above, then we need to directly schedule a technician on a work order. But if it's just around 103, maybe first create the case, contact the customer, get insights to what's actually happening there, try to fix it remote. So it gives you all kinds of flexibilities on how to automatically generate work or actions. And as you can see, we can add another actions like that. So it's not just automized flows, but it could also be automized emails. You can connect it to a web app, Azure Logic apps, so real applications that transform your data into a significant certain output. And that is the high potential. If we look at an example how such an email after such an alert could look like, you can directly communicate with your customer, because we can see there was an IoT alert and you're actually free to define those details yourself. You could, for example, write a customer email that is in your corporate design saying, hey, we spotted the voltage outage is way above the limit. We would like to schedule a technician alongside your remote monitoring contract that fixes the asset for you, because we are expecting a breakdown. And that makes you really proactive and lets you intervene with the customer if needed. If we then have a look at the analytics section, there we can actually select those device groups, attach them to a certain telemetry, so energy reading, for example, and group that by energy reading as well, analyze that, and yeah, you can get even more detailed insights on what are your energy readings and what are your smart meter readings. So your customer doesn't have to walk to his meter and give his meter readings back. No, you're fully empowered, you're fully aware, and you can do that for him and manage that for him. And that's a service customers do want to have. And yeah, offers you the capability to also get a better understanding how customers are actually using your assets. Yeah, besides that, you can have all kind of data exports and administrate your IoT central solution. But since we've activated that rule, let's check out how that then looks in field service if such a case or work order is being automatically created. And therefore, I would like to go to the case section. We see here, I got my few IoT case safe views open, and we can see it has generated a lot of cases, and now we can react on them. If we now go into the case itself, the case is the entity within the customer engagement platform that's actually coming from customer service. Within advanced field service, our product, we've extended the functionality to be also a little bit more service oriented, with adding fields of that field service and SLA times towards it, and connecting it more to our advanced field service product. We can get the information out of the customer. The IoT alerts has communicated, okay, it's coming from IoT. We expect it's a preventive maintenance, and yeah, a certain kind of description, so high voltage observed. It is related to this customer asset. And yeah, we can also get insights and access into the knowledge base. So the case entity allows you, alongside a certain workflow, move different kind of cases towards contacts. So we can say, okay, it was reported by this contact, and or we can assign it to a certain customer service employee that's responsible for that. In that case, to my colleague Abhishek. And then we can resolve and act on that case. As well as you can see, we can create child cases here. We can add them to a queue. Later on, still assign them to different employees. So you can actually set up a real call center if that's needed as well, and a whole customer service central application where you get the details, where you can define even more according which SLA are we acting, or what kind of problem it is. Under the diagnostics, we also have complaint cause and solution codes added. It's also advanced field service IP, where we can, for example, that's now on 4 meter complaint. So that's the notification the customer got. How are we going to solve that? Yeah, well, we're gonna the cause is the sensor, because that's defect, and what we're going to do is we're going to reset that sensor. And why are we going to do that? Because in the summary, we have looked up, for example, the knowledge base as a customer service engineer. And if I open that up and type in how to fix, then I see how to fix meter code error 44, can get into the knowledge base article, and here I have already written the guided steps how to fix the meter code 404. So I first got to restart that meter, put the battery back inside, put the reset button, and that's actually something I can also hand over towards my customer or schedule a remote call on that. And now we see the SLA timers are applicable. They are counting down since I have added them. And yeah, I can basically react or need to react according to the SLA timers on this case complaint. Then we have the possibility to merge and child cases as well as associate the knowledge records to that. If it's a complete new case with a problem we've never spotted before, then we also have the capability here to convert it into a knowledge article, so extend our knowledge base. And here in field service, we have the possibility to add an incident type. So if I say now here the case incident type is a maintenance, and then go to field service, it automatically fills in the incident type of maintenance. But I could also have different kind of asset related incident types that I, for example, want to first fix that via an IoT remote control because I'm sending commands towards the asset. And talking about commands, if it's an IoT related asset, then I also have the capability to send IoT commands from the case entity. Besides that, I could offer my customers to also have a customer portal. Therefore, I would like to quickly switch to a PowerPoint slide again, because yeah, you can actually create a self-service portal for your customers, and that could not only be, of course, a web application on your laptop, but they could use it on the tablets. They could have it in form of a Power App, as well as the IoT alerts can be displayed on such a portal, such a Power App. So your customer actually really gets insight on what is happening with my asset. Because you need to understand how the Power Platform works. It enables you with portals and Power Apps to kind of mirror what your application, your business application like field service or sales is having inside, and mirror that towards the customer so they can really access your records, but on a security driven way. So you can set the security settings, you can enable what you want your customers to see, and only show them what is required and important for them. But yeah, for example, they could have access into your knowledge base so they can fix their smart meters themselves, or they can get access into the IoT alert so they better understand why their asset is currently overheating, or what is happening, or what is their actual current meter readings if needed. Yeah, this being said, let's get into the application again. Let's imagine, okay, we now couldn't fix remote via commands or calling the customer, because you can, of course, have the timeline here, so you can generate emails, phone calls, tasks, and all that kind of stuff. You can as well integrate the case entity into Microsoft Teams, and therefore we get that collaborate via Microsoft Teams entity. You can export all the information via PDF, so connecting it to your Office suite and communicate with your customer according to that. If it's now not being fixed by the case, we could say, okay, we've now added a certain incident type, and it's not an IoT remote control incident. Let's say it's real maintenance work. We have to schedule a technician. Or we could also do a work order that is IoT remote control. Doesn't matter, as soon as we save that, and then maybe quickly wait a minute, then we can convert it to a work order above here. And on that work order, we can actually schedule a technician or a service employee remote via Microsoft Remote Assist that is capable of helping your customers alongside that. Now the system tells me the work order was created successfully, and then we get to the work order record, which we also had similar like the installation. So all the capabilities and you have there, you can of course do with IoT remote control or service work. And yeah, they basically fill out all those bookings and products and services as well. Maybe quickly wait a minute till they have loaded. Or refresh the tab. Yeah, now they're in there. So what kind of work we need to do? And this being said, there's one more thing I would like to show you before we get to the end of the webinar, and that is actually the execution of such a work order via the mobile application. And there I've prepared a video for you guys. Let me just quickly move that along here. And get the video out, because I've recorded my screen on my phone, and I quickly need to open that up. That's what we get here. And let's play the video and have a look at Field Service Mobile, the new Microsoft application, where you can actually get insights into IoT alerts as well as a technician, and work on your bookings as well as do checklists. So let's play that video. I'm now in the mobile application. As you can see, I can have my bookings, work orders, products, all kind of information I have. Now I'm in the IoT alerts, so I get an overview of that as well. Can get an insight into what IoT device is connected there, as well as have an overview of all my bookings and activities I need to do. So I can see that I had remote assist calls alongside work orders, which I'm opening up now with my colleague Lieve Nurkes. Filter those activities, so everything you use from the customer engagement platform you can use there as well. If I now go into that booking, so into that work order we have just seen, we see it's about that meter modem we had. We can give that work order different kind of statuses. I can say I've completed it, add product service tasks I got in there. If I go into the service tasks, I can actually fulfill them and tell the customer what have I done. Have I completed those steps, as well as report it back to the back office. How much time I've actually needed compared to estimated time when I did that work. And now we can see that we can also connect it to Microsoft Guides. So if I did that remote assist call, I could have a guide, and the guide could have been coming from the knowledge base we've had on how to fix that asset. And if I cannot fix an asset on site, use guides to learn how to fix it, or connect to an employee. And what I'm filling out right here, that's actually the checklist we can attach to such a service task, where we can capture photos, for example, and attach that towards it. Fill out different kind of information, like what kind of IoT device is it, what was the customer feedback. Behind the customer feedback, I could also attach a customer survey via customer voice to get closer to that process. Mark that work as being complete, as I've done the checklist, and report that then back towards my field service solution. Then I have different settings to give time entries. So I can not only report my service work, but I could also say I had different kind of activities, had travel times, learning times, off times, vacation, and I report that via the time entries. And therefore do also the service planning related on the planning board. And yeah, it's actually a perfect application where we can also get insights into the IoT alerts, what kind of IoT alerts, as well as in a visualized way. So you can also integrate Power BI in there and also get that from Azure IoT Central. So that's the mobile application towards field service, how you would then fill out such a work order. And since I filled out this work order in the mobile application, if all of that is done, the status changes to completed. We can see here's the survey and the information that I've added. So as well as my services are reported back, and the service tasks, so we can see what I filled out was that final check smart meter, that I've completed that. And yeah, if we then have a look at the totals, we can actually see we had estimated costs of €60.50. Total costs that were happening were €60.50 indeed, but invoiced is nothing. And of course, nothing is invoiced because it's covered by our IoT remote monitoring contract, so by our recurring revenue. And if we keep in mind that we have a contract of €100 worth, then we can see that we nearly made €40 on that contract this month with that service work. And if we then imagine, okay, we have months where a customer don't needs fixing, where no costs are produced, but they're still paying a certain fee on a recurring revenue, then we nearly have a 100% revenue. Of course, there are still a few costs related, but you can see the potential of revenue it is generating for you. Because if you get those insights and can prevent breakdowns mainly, then you will have it quite less frequently than you usually have it, that assets break down, and you get a better understanding on how those assets are operating and are being used, and therefore can reduce your cost while increasing your revenue. And this being said, I would like to end the story with moving to the dashboard again, because that's where it's really important to visualize that data, to act on those IoT alerts, send different kind of commands like a test, an update, version, and calibration, be proactive, and go towards your customer. Spot differences in the kind of work you do via visualizations of different kind of incident types, and try to satisfy your customer as much as possible. One last thing, switching to PowerPoint and talking about more visualizations of data and the usage of Power BI. You can, of course, have such a Power BI dashboard like we have here. That's an example we did for the service industry, where we can track also our contract amount, how much money are we generating via our different kind of contract types. Could be all kind of contracts you have. We now have a simple example here with bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Drill down even more based on the customer, what kind of work, what kind of asset types are we having, where are those work orders located, maybe track how much first time fixed percentage did we have if we really had to visit that customer, and also compare on a case level, why are customers actually complaining, maybe something needs to be exchanged, fixed, and that's also on an asset level, because we then can spot here that our entrance systems receive a lot of complaints, for example, and that we should maybe have a look at that as well. Thank you very much. Now it would be time to answer your open questions. I really appreciate you listening in, and I hope it motivated you to think a little bit about how your company could act on servitization. This being said, I'm happy to have your questions in the chat box. Hello, I have joined delayed. Is it possible to get a record of this? For sure, the session is recorded, and after the webinar, we will send you an automized email where the recording of the webinar will be in. Then there's another one popping up. Let me just open up that screen a little bit. Can you capture customer signature with the mobile app? Yes, that's actually something that was not included in the demonstration part, but that's for sure a possibility that the customer can give his signature and hand that in, and basically also confirm the checklist that we have been seeing. What is the price of your advanced field service solution? Pricing is something we don't discuss openly, but I will write down your name and get back into contact with you. And in case of a certain qualification, we are happy to discuss pricing with you and get on the details what our advanced field service implementation and solution would cost on a revenue, on a license perspective. Then there's another question about Azure IoT Central. Can you also have the asset hierarchy within Azure IoT Central? Yes, since we have those asset groups, you can basically drop them down into the single components as well. So you could set up a device group meter, and the device group meter could then have the subcomponents of processor meter case as well. Is there a specific setting to enable the team's collaboration for a case? Well, that is out of the box functionality. As mentioned, Microsoft has that dataverse capability. So that's how they call their data structure that's divided in entities and tables. And Teams is actually built on the same as well as the customer engagement platform. So it's an out of the box setting as soon as you have an Azure IoT tenant. So your organization is registered in there, you can leverage Teams for Dynamics 365. If you, although, want to leverage Teams to remotely assist customers, then that's a different license. That's something I would like to mention here, because Remote Assist is a license themselves. So customer calling and advising them with guides and that kind of structure, that is a different license. Are there any further questions? Because I now see no questions coming in anymore. Then I would like to give you 1 more minute to think about that. Then I would like to say thank you for your time and attention. It was great that all of you joined and the high attendance rate. I hope it inspired you to move towards servitization and gave you a good impression on what is possible with Dynamics Advanced Field Service and the power of IoT. Have a nice day, stay healthy, and have a good year.